Something's gotta give, my friends. So I'm just on my walk. Got my Bruins shirt on. Go Boston. You know they're gonna lose though, and you can see this beautiful Milton, Georgia. You know they're gonna lose to those dastardly rats called the Florida Panthers, and you know the Bruins will lose this series tonight. You heard it here first, guaranteed. Make your bets now. Anyway, so on my live stream today on Locals, and every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we do a live stream on Locals. Just joshscanlon.locals.com, and you should become a subscriber. $5 a month. And once I get a certain threshold of subscribers, we'll be doing live streams predominantly on Locals because I enjoy it. A lot of interaction, a lot of feedback among a smaller community, which is fun. I still like YouTube live streams. But I very much enjoy the feedback and the interaction among people that I've come to know and actually like and consider friends, even though I've never met. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so I looked up the 13-week bill today, the Treasury bill. It's paying 4.92. I looked up the 10-year Treasury bond. What are you doing, Buggy? It's paying 3.45. 10-year Treasury bond fell today. Well, stocks are going up. The bond, the yield is, that is. The price went up. So we have an inflation, inverted yield curve that's at 150 basis points, which means if you take 150 basis points and divide that into the current yield of the 10-year Treasury, that's like a 45 or 47% inverted amount. Basically, it's almost half of the 10-year Treasury is inverted. Does that make sense? Half the extent of the 10-year Treasury is inverted. So I said, maybe that's not as unique as I would have thought. So I looked up Japan. They didn't have anything they really like this at all. We've never had anything like this. Even in the early 80s, wasn't anything close to this, with a half of the current 10-year Treasury was inverted. That's insanity. It's been like this for a while now. You know, at least 3, 4, 5 months or something like that, if not 6. That's not sustainable. Economics 101. You're going to get rewarded. The longer you're gonna demand for more interest the longer you lock up your money when you loan it to somebody. If I loan you $100,000 for 5 years, I would expect you to pay me more than if I loan your neighbor $100,000 for 1 year, because I'm locking up my money for a longer amount of time. There's opportunity cost. There's more risk that you might default in those 5 years too. Inherently, it's not even close to that now. It's the exact opposite. I loan you $100,000 for 5 years, or 10 years, I'm getting paid 3.5%. I loan you $100,000 for 13 weeks, I'm getting paid 5. That doesn't make any sense. So Japan didn't have extended inverted yield curves, even though they're back to ZIRP. It seems like zero interest rate policy. I don't know if it's the actual policy or not, but they're back to negative interest rates. NIRP, I should say. NIRP. Negative interest rate policy. Again, I'm not sure quite P is in there, but still they're at NIRP. It's crazy. And yet the long-term bonds are still yielding more than the short-term because it's not inverted. It doesn't make sense. So the question is, what is it going to take to have the inverted yield curve come back to normal? Well, it's going to be ugly either way. It's going to be one of two things. Either the economy is falling through the roof, through the floor, ceiling, through the basement, where they're going to start lowering the rates. And then that way you say, look, we got to get some jump start back because the economy's falling through the floor. Maybe, okay. But if that happens, they're going to have to lower them significantly because don't forget, the 10-year is still significantly lower than the 13-week right now. So if the economy starts going through the floor, what happens? People start buying long-term, or start buying, the flight to quality is what's called. They start buying safe assets. Government bonds. What happens when people buy bonds? It makes the yields go down. The price goes up, the yields go down. So they're going to have to freaking go nuts, Jerome Powell and the boys, to get the short-term rates below the long-term rates. That could happen, 100%. Or the economy just, I don't know, the economy takes off. And we have, I just don't see that. I mean, it's not taking off. But I guess you could say the economy takes off. People start saying, I'm not getting rewarded enough for locking up my money for 5, 10, 15, 20 years in government bonds, so I'm going to sell my bonds because inflation is roaring, and I'm going to buy stocks instead. That's not happening right now. The economy is definitely souring as we speak. It doesn't mean it's going to be inflationary or deflationary. It doesn't mean it's going to be depression, recession. It's coming. There's no way it's not. But whatever. I don't know. You don't know. All I know is that I'm sitting there thinking, all right, so what would happen in that case? Let's say the economy takes off and inflation starts running back its head. People say, I'm not I'm not losing money in long-term bonds. I sell my bonds, all right? And inherently, the yields go up because the price of the bonds goes down. Okay. Does that likely to happen? No. So what's the other? So that's, what if the economy, though, is stagnation? This is my concern. I.e., the Fed, and I don't think the Fed controls the economy nearly what other people do. I just don't. It's kind of like how you have this control a knob for CO2 to change the temperatures. That's just dumb. But anyway, let's just say we have stagnation. Higher inflation, low economic output, all right? And when I say higher inflation, it's not because of money supply, because M2 money supply is dropping again like a brick in water. It's because high energy costs, low productivity. That's stagnation. All right, so now you have stagnation, lower economic output, higher inflation across the board. Well, what happens then? And do we think Jerome Powell is going to freaking lower the interest rates? No. In fact, I think Jerome Powell, I think he's actually doing Trump a favor, because didn't Trump appoint Powell? I think he did. I don't think Jerome Powell is going to be bushwhacked by Sniffy Joe and his band of clowns, tyrants, who are going to say, we have an election coming up, Jerome, you got to lower the interest rates to make my re-election chances higher. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, he might do that. Sniffy Joe would do it, but I don't think Powell's going to pay much mind to that. I think Powell's like, whatever, dude. We've got to get some of the zombification out of the system. That's what I think. I don't know that to be true, but I could be wrong. So I don't think I don't know. I don't think the low term, the Powell is going to be too keen on lowering short-term rates anytime soon, which means the short-term rates are going to stay high. And people are not going to just say, well, if we go into recession, I'm going to sell my government bonds to do what with? Buy stocks? That doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. But something's got to give. The rates on the long term have to come down, or go up, or the rates on the short term have to come down. One of those two things. And what would be the impetus to make the rates on the long term go up? The rates on the long term have to go up. Is that what I said? The rates on the long term have to go up, and the rates on the short term have to go down. The only way that happens is if people sell their government bonds. And the only way that would happen is if people say, inflation is so through the roof that I'm getting penalized for holding these government bonds. I'm going to sell them. Okay, but that would imply, I just don't see that. I just don't see that happening, man. That would imply some either economic growth or significant stagnation and stagflation. And I don't know. I don't see it, man. It's weird, but I guess that could happen where people say, look, man, inflation, but I mean, inflation is already, it's already decreasing right now. Now, it's not going to be probably the 2% federal funds target, but Fed target. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. I actually think what's going to happen is we're going to have a major economic damage cost. And I hate to be the negative now. I hate to be Peter Schiff. I think it's happening. I think we've allowed too many zombie companies for too long. I think Jerome Powell is going to allow the long-term rates, the short-term rates stay high for a long period of time to wash out some of these companies that need to be washed out years ago. And we're going to go into a 1920-21 depression, 1980-82 depression, essentially, that was painful big time, but short-lived. And I think what's going to happen there is that's going to actually cause the long-term rates to go down because people are going to sell their stocks and buy bonds, government bonds. There's always a flight to quality whenever the economy craters, always. And I'm banking on that, actually, because I'm going to buy some more EDV, long-term government bonds. And I'll do a video on that here later on tonight when I get back from my walk. And I could be wrong, but I mean, I'm telling you, man, the economic output does not seem convincing to me that it's going to be freaking, to the moon and beyond with Buzz Aldrin. I don't see it happening. I actually see that Jerome Powell is going to keep the long-term rates high, short-term rates high until he gets some of these zombies out. The long-term rates will stay low because people are going to buy flight to quality, buy government debt. And then after that, probably 2 years from now or something like that, once Powell's up again, I think he's up, every 5 years, I think. Who knows what will happen at that point. Be the knee-deep into 2024. I don't know, man. I just don't think it looks good out there. As such, I'm banking on the longer-term rates staying low as opposed to going up or even going down. Flight to quality always means people buy government bonds. In times of trouble, I fall to my knees and look to the sky. 'Cause me, I want more. Who sang that song? Put in the doobie dook. I tell you, man, it's crazy though. And so if you have massive economic carnage. And when I say I don't mean like Great Depression. I'm just saying a severe recession. The 2020 insanity was not a severe recession, my friends. The 2008 was severe. 1982 was severe. 19, 20, 21 was severe. And then we had, obviously, the Great Depression. These things happen. And when that happens, long-term bonds look great, for sure. Now, again, if I'm wrong and the economy does go growing, do you think still long-term rates are going to just spike up? Because to have growth in the economy would indicate we have more inflation, we'd think, and I don't believe that to be true, but all of a sudden a bunch of people start selling their government bonds. I just don't see it, man. I could be wrong, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I don't know. It's interesting. We have never had this before. Do people not get this? A 45% inversion. It's been like this for months. I don't think people realize where we are. That doesn't mean you sell all your stocks. Obviously, you want to have some stocks. You want to have some bonds. You got to be diversified. But man, it's going to be interesting. Love your thoughts. We'll see you